Good afternoon. Welcome to the third session of the fall 2017 Sunoikisis Digital Cultural Heritage module. This is part of the larger Sunoikisis Digital Classics session program that's normally chaired by Monica Berti, but this slightly shorter fall module is on a slightly different theme. So we're this week the theme will be geographic annotation and visualization, and we're extremely pleased to welcome Paula Granados García from the Open University and Valeria Vitale from the University of London, who has of course spoken before on Sunoikisis. And they're going to talk to us about various aspects of geographic annotation and so forth. So I think Paula will start.
Thank you, Gabby. Confirm me very quickly, you can hear me? Everything okay? Okay,
Yeah,
thank you very much. I'm gonna share my screen so you can see my slides. Can you see them, Gabby?
Yes, it's all good.
Okay, great. So, hello everybody, and thank you very much for the introduction, Gabby. In this session, I will be giving a short presentation about geographical annotation, and then Valeria Vitale, my colleague, will talk you through digital gazetteers and Recogito. And finally, I will come back for the final section focused on applications of geographic annotations in research. And after that, we will have some questions and answers. So let's start by the beginning, an introduction on geographic annotation. Well, the concept of geographic annotation is constituted by two separate ideas. First, the idea of geography, the conception of geography as a science, and then the act of annotating any kind of media of interest in the geographic field, such as maps, texts, and so on. So let's start talking about geography very briefly. What is geography? Geography is a science devoted to the study of the land, its features, its inhabitants, and its phenomena. As you all know, there are two main branches in this discipline: human geography, that focuses on the study of patterns and processes that shape the human society, and physical geography, that focuses on geography as an earth science. As you may know, today we are semantically annotating geographic premodern texts. We are talking about geographic annotation, but normally focus on premodern texts because that is our field of expertise, generally classics texts and medieval texts. Therefore, I think it is important to consider the differences between geography as we know it nowadays and geography as it was conceived in premodern societies. Today, we have a different concept about geography to what ancient people had. Nevertheless, we can still apply our current idea of geography to understand premodern conceptions. Classic texts deal with geography in different ways compared to geographic texts today. These differences can be appreciated, for example, in some areas, such as the different types of written sources, for example, the Greek periply or the Latin itineraria that present a list of places. We can also see these differences in general geography, such as the one written by Pliny or Strabo, that not only describe the land, but also the people, ethnic groups, how do they behave, and also even they talk about meteorological information. But a common aspect shared by all these texts and media is that they are non-mapped geographies. This means that they did not generally require the use of cartographic maps, because these were normally used for other purposes, such as philosophical texts or administrative texts or so on, or administrative ideas. So, however, if you're interested about this, I will advise you to look at the next sessions that will be focused on geography. And also, Chiara Palladino last year, she gave a very, very good presentation on this topic. And if you are interested, it would be interesting to look at. It would be good for you to look at it. So let's go to the second concept, which is annotation. I am sure that when I refer to annotate a text, if you don't have any previous knowledge about geographical annotation, you might imagine this: a book in which some words have been underlined with some notes, some context, and so on. And in fact, you are not very wrong, because the dictionary defines annotation as a note of explanation or comment added to a text or a diagram. Nevertheless, when we speak about geographic annotation, the act of annotating any kind of media that has a geographic interest goes a small step forward. In this context, annotation is considered as a statement that someone makes about something. Therefore, it establishes a connection between any kind of media and the body. And this body is something that is related to our target. For example, if we perform annotations in text, the specific word in the text will be our target, and the information that we relate to this word would be our body. This body could be a URI, a gazetteer, or it also could be an internal authority list. There are two types of annotations. Annotations can be made external, or they can also be made through internal markup. External annotation is when both the sources and the annotations are stored separately in different locations, whereas inline markup is when sources and annotation are stored together in the same place. So, therefore, the annotation is a specific type of annotation that establishes a connection between the target, an annotated term, a geographic annotated term, and a canonical reference in an authority list regarding a geographical space. When you do an annotation in this way, you associate that place with a specific reference into an existing gazetteer. You can use, for example, inline markup, like, you can use TEI or markup, but you can also use other systems that you will see in the other technologies you will see today. And you can do the same in images or other media, not just text, although we will be mainly focusing on text. Well, Valeria maybe will have other examples. So now we are going to focus on external or semantic annotation, which will be also the one used in our tutorial and our practical exercise. This kind of annotation is the one employed by the Pleiades project. Pelagios was originally born as a way to allow users to have access to different types of data and resources of the ancient world. These resources are especially related to places and are interconnected on the basis of common aspects. The technology that allows Pelagios to link resources together is called linked open data. Linked open data is a technology that enables the interconnection of online resources by means of common aspects through statements following the subject, predicate, and object formula, and expressed using controlled linked open vocabularies. When you annotate a document semantically following linked open data standards, you are making a statement that connects two different resources online, the target and the body, as we have explained before. This connection that you make allows you to retrieve information about the same planes from many other databases or resources. And these resources should have also published their data online following linked open data standards. Otherwise, it wouldn't be possible to make this connection. When you annotate a geographic document in a traditional way, maybe you might find interesting places, such as, for example, in this screen capture, such as Athens and Sparta, the places in blue. And once you have found these two places, you might want to disambiguate it. This is to identify them as a real and unique place. If you were doing this in a traditional way, you might note something, you might mark them, and you might refer them. You will also use you could also use markup, such as TEI, to identify them in an internal reference list. But you could also do it through external annotation. As we can see here in this example from Pelagios, and I have explained before, this external annotation is the linkage between the target and the body, which is normally a URI that is in a gazetteer. A gazetteer is kind of a geographical dictionary, a kind of group of places identified with a common, a specific location. So therefore, external annotation allows you to link a specific place that you find in the text to a canonical reference. This reference is aligned through a stable link, is disambiguated, so we are specifying the exact place we are referring to, but it also provides metadata that gives you more information about the target. This is very interesting because this metadata, it can contextualize the information that you have. So it can expand your knowledge and it can give you more information you didn't know, you didn't have previously. This process can be done through linked data, as I have explained, which is the technology that enables the interconnection between the different sources that are available online. Okay, and now I will let Valeria continue. Valeria, can you hear me?
Yeah, okay, thank you, Paula. Okay, I'll take it from here. Great, so before we start, what we're going to do today is I'm going to show you a short tutorial on how to use an online tool that has been developed by the Pelagios project that Paula mentioned, that will allow users to produce semantic annotations on pre-modern text, both verbal text and images, and in a quite simple and straightforward way, but we'll see that it will also allow us to download the annotation that we have just created in perfectly valid formal languages like XML RDF, XML TI, GeoJSON, and so on. But before we start our little journey through Recogito, I want to say a few more words about something that is absolutely crucial in our building geographical semantic annotations. And Paula has already mentioned them a little bit, and they are GAZETTEER. So when I do Recogito workshops and geoannotation workshops, I do get a lot of questions about GAZETTEERS, because we tend to take it for granted that everyone is familiar with that. But I want to actually spend a few more words talking about that. So a gazetteer is not a digital concept. We had gazetteer way before we had digital tools and methods. And as Paula was saying, a gazetteer is basically a geographical index or directory, which is used alongside maps or atlases. And I'm sure that we have all used printed gazetteer. I mean, if we have studied classics or ancient history or archaeology, we all have dealt with beautiful printed maps. We may have searched the Barrington Atlas, for example, or the topography of the civilization, the Greek and Roman civilization in Italy, the BTCGI. They are all incredible resources, very useful resources that have been definitely valuable to our research. But now we have a growing number of digital gazetteers. And what do digital gazetteers offer us more than traditional printed gazetteers? Well, there are some, let's say, practical advantages that are fairly self-evident. Like, for example, they are always accessible. So if you don't own a copy of the Barrington Atlas or the 20-something volumes of the BTCGI at home, you would need to go to a library to access one copy, while if it is online, you can always access it. And the best digital gazetteers, like, for example, the Pleiades Gazetteer, that is the most famous and commonly used reference for the ancient world, are entirely free. Another advantage that is, this is quite common when we compare digital resources to printed resources, is that it's easier for digital resources to deal and to represent, to deal with and to represent variants. So, for example, if we are printing locations on a map, it is quite likely that we can only put one dot for each place on the map. While on a digital resource, as we will see in Pleiades, we can actually, create more than one link and say, okay, there are some possible locations for this ancient place, or there are, some different sources about the location of this place, and we want to list them all. And it's also easier to record variant names, although, for example, the BTCGI also records variant names, but it is easier and more accessible with digital resources. And also, as all or many digital tools, it's much more easy to search, and to search not just alphabetically, but to make more specific queries sometimes. And this is another value I am, particularly fond of. They are more likely to be, not necessarily, but they are often collaborative efforts, and Pleiades, it's a very good example of that. But other gazetteers that we'll see are also collaborative endeavors. And if you have more people collaborating to creating a gazetteer, you're more likely to have different perspectives and maybe contributions that come from different approaches to what we know about the ancient world, and we might, discover that we have assumed a lot of times that we knew the right answers to things, but it wasn't the case. But we may say that besides all these wonderful advantages of digital gazetteers, the number one job that now digital gazetteers perform is to give us unambiguous URIs. And URI stands for Unique Resource Identifier, as Paula was saying, and they are codes, unique codes like a barcode or a fingerprint that identify resources unambiguously, so that we can make statements, as Paula was saying, and be sure that we are referring to exactly that thing. And if more people make statements about, for example, the same place, they can do it referring to the same URI that come from a gazetteer. So, for example, if we want to have a look at the Pleiades Gazetteer, so a very, very well-known online gazetteer, we see that we have a map, we have a number of locations, we have a number of variant names, but above all, we have the URI for this place, that is Tarentum in Italy. So when we make a statement about Tarentum, when we are annotating a text where we see the word Tarentum, or if we have a picture, like in our example, a picture on Flickr that represents Tarentum, we can connect these resources using the same URI that comes from the gazetteer Pleiades. Now, the other question that I get a lot when I talk about gazetteer is, okay, if we have unique resource identifiers for places, then how is it possible that sometimes we have a number of unique resources identifiers for the same place? Or to put it in other words, why do we have more than one gazetteer? Because you might have noticed that, Pleiades is not it's not the only gazetteer that is available. There is a number of gazetteers, and we will see during our annotations with Recogito that when we annotate places in text or images, we get to choose which is the gazetteer that we want to use to refer to the same place. So I do get this question, why do we have more URIs for the same place? Well, in my opinion, the answer is that we need many gazetteers in the same way that we need, many languages to indicate the same thing, because we need different perspectives, because the word is complex and is rich, and there are different ways to look at it. So, for example, we can have gazetteers that focus only on a specific area. So, for example, they only focus on the Mediterranean area, or the classical world as it was in the past, the goal of Pleiades. Or we could have, a gazetteer that focuses on a specific time span. We could have a medieval gazetteer, or actually we could have, a modern time gazetteer, like, for example, geonames. This would be the result that you would get in geonames if you look for the exact same thing that we have looked up in Pleiades, if you look for the city of Tarentum. So you find modern places and modern let's say, interesting spots there that are not the same things that are interesting to someone that is looking at the same place, but from an ancient historian or a classicist perspective. Or we could have gazetteers that focus on a specific theme or perspective. So we could have, for example, gazetteers that only record archaeological remains, for example, or we could have a combinations of the above, so a specific area and a specific time span. And just to give you some other example, this is the Heritage Gazetteer of Cyprus that focuses on a quite specific part of the world, which is the island of Cyprus, and wants to record all the geographical information about places and heritage monuments from prehistory to modern times. So we have a very small, if you want, geographical area of interest, but a quite large time span. Or we could have, again, a selection of time and space. This is the Alturaya Gazetteer that focuses on pre-modern Islamic world, and or we could have a gazetteer of historical Indian places, and so on. And each gazetteer has its own scope and its own purpose. So it depends from what is the aspect of that place that we're interested in to decide what is the most relevant gazetteer. But the fact that different gazetteers coexist shouldn't confuse us and shouldn't make us think, oh, okay, my project has used Pleiades and another project has used geonames to make their own geographical annotation. So they will never be compatible. We will never be able to make our annotation talk to each other because we're lucky, and different gazetteers can make to speak to each other if their annotations are aligned using linked open data. And so, for example, we can establish a relationship between different URIs and different entries, saying, okay, this URI in geonames can be associated with this URI in Pleiades because they are the same thing, or because they are kind of the same thing, or because they're not the same thing, but they are related, and we do want to establish a connection between them. So this was my brief introduction to gazetteers, and now we'll see gazetteers in action when we annotate historical text through these online tool that has been developed by the Pelagios project that is called Recogito. It's online at the recogitos.pelagios.org. You just go there and create your own account if you don't have one already, and you can start annotating straight away. You don't need to be approved or anything. So what you do in Recogito is basically uploading your own document, your own copy of the digital source that you want to annotate. That could be either a text or an image, or with less functionality, a spreadsheet, and then you start annotating it. You have your own, let's say, online workspace.
Sorry, Valeria, you seem to have accidentally been muted.
Okay, well, what was the last bit that you got?
We didn't miss very much. You were just muted.
Okay. Okay, great. Sorry about that. Yes, I was saying that this will be a very brief tutorial to Recogito, but there will be a more detailed handout available, because I want to leave Paula more time to talk about some actual application in research of geographic annotation. So let's have a quick look at what Recogito can do for you if you want to annotate your historical text. And let's start with annotation of, let's say, word text, so text. And you can upload new documents with this. Let's log in. With that button, new document. Well, we are not doing that now. It was just to show you how to add a new document. And after you have uploaded your document, you will see it in the list of your own documents. And I will show you annotation on a document that I have already prepared for you. Bear in mind that the only text format that Recogito can accept at the moment is .txt. So your text must be in TXT format to be uploaded into Recogito. So the text that we have chosen today is from Diodorus Siculus. It's an extract. And let's see what happens when we click on our digital document in Recogito and we want to perform our annotations. So the first thing that we can notice is that some words are highlighted in gray. And what is happening is that Recogito has an embedded algorithm that you can disable if you don't want it, that will perform a preliminary named entity recognition. It means that it will look at all of the words and it will try to identify for us all the words that it thinks can be either places or persons. And then it's up to us to see if these guesses have been correct or not. So let's check some of these annotations that Recogito has done for us. For example, let's try Thebes. So if we click on it, we see that Recogito is suggesting to us that this place mentioned here is the place Thebe that is in the Pleiades GAZETTEER. And here we have the URI for Pleiades, and this guess is actually correct. So we can say, thank you, Recogito, and confirm. And we have just created an annotation that has my name. So each annotation is associated to a specific author, and we click OK. And we just...
That wasn't correct.
It wasn't correct? It's not the right one?
No, because it thinks it's Thebes in Boeotia, and it's actually Thebes in Egypt.
Oh, you're right. Damn, I got confused. Okay, can we pretend that is correct? I apologize with all the classicists here, and let's pretend it's correct.
You might enjoy the opportunity to fix it, but if you want to pretend it's correct, I won't tell anyone.
Okay, no, that's actually, we can use that. So let's say that we do not agree with what Recogito says, and we say, okay, let's see what are the other options that Recogito is offering us. And here on the left, we see all the things that Recogito has found, looking, in its in all the gazetteers that are connected, which are 3, by the way, and you can recognize them by the icon next to them. So the blue P is for Pleiades, the green G is for geonames, and the orange D is for the digital atlas of the Roman Empire. So we can say, okay, we don't like that one. This is the one that looks more likely to be. Is probably this one? No. Do you guys reckon is this one? Is the first one?
It seems likely to be, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So we say, okay, and we have again created now the first correct annotation in our document with Recogito. But let's have a look at what happens when we want to actually annotate a word that Recogito has not already highlighted for us. So, for example, we could annotate. I'm sure there was one here somewhere.
Marinea, you just scrolled off the top of your screen.
Which one? Say that again, sorry.
Marinea, just a little bit further up. So he called the land. He built a city and called it Marinea. Okay.
So we just highlight the word. Thank you, Gabi. And at this point, Recogito doesn't really have a clue if we're talking about a place, a person, or an event. So we have to tell Recogito that this is a place. And it doesn't seem to have found any match. So let's click on search. And do you think this might be the right one? I am moving in uncharted geographical territories here.
Yeah, I have no idea either.
Okay, let's say is this one. I will delete this document afterwards. So for the sake of the tutorial, let's say that this was exactly the place that we were looking for. So we can say okay, and again we have created a place annotation. And you see that when we do associate the word to a gazetteer entry, as Paula was explaining before, the color of the highlighting changes and it goes from gray to green, which means that we have geo-resolved it. It means that we have associated actual coordinates on a map to that words in the text. And this tutorial and this class is mostly about geography, but just very quickly, I wanted to show you that you can also annotate persons and event in Recogito, and sadly, you don't have the same feature for persons and events that you have for places. So you don't have an inbuilt list of authorities that you can use to disambiguate the person, but you can still create an annotation that simply says that Osiris is arguably a person. And you can refine your annotation. This is true for all the annotation for places as well, using comments and using tags. So for example, you could say that Osiris, yes, is a person, but it's also, for example, it's a divine character. So we can create a tag, and we'll see when we go and export data that our tag and comments will be exported as well. and we click OK. And this is another handy or possibly nightmarish feature of Recogito that asks you if you want to reapply exactly the same annotation, and this includes tags and comments, to all the other occurrences of the word in the text. And that's, up to you if that is a good idea or not. I would say that in the case of Osiris, we are pretty safe in saying, yes, please do that. And we could change the color code, moving to entity type, and we will see that the people annotation, the person annotation are in blue, while the place annotations are in green, and if we had events annotated as well, they would be in purple. But let's stay geographical for this class, and one of the very best features of Recogito is that after you've done all your annotations, geographical annotations in the text, you can visualize them plotted on a map. And you see that you have dots, usually of different sizes, although I think that in this case they are fairly close to each other, but the places that receive more annotations, they show up as bigger dots. And if you click on the dot, you can see actually where the annotations come from. And let's go to our Egyptian one, maybe. If you had more annotations for the same place, which we can actually see in another text, let's move to another text that might show this as better. We move to Livy, and you can now see more clearly that when we have more annotations about the same place, the dot become bigger, and we can scroll the annotations one after the other and see the annotated word in a little bit of context. And if we want to get more context, we can actually go back to the text and find again where the annotation had been made. And this is a very, very quick overview of the text annotation, and I'm gonna show you now again very quickly what happens with the image annotation. And I will use, yeah, why not this map? Okay, so this is the interface for image annotation in Recogito, which is slightly different, but pretty much works with the same principle. So you can zoom in the image, you can pan it, just dragging and moving it. You can rotate it if you need maybe to adjust the orientation of the words, just holding Shift and Alt, but you have in the help you have the shortcuts. And the things that you can do on the map are basically either annotating specific points with the point tool, or annotating portions of the image. Maybe you are interested in the word, in the place name, or you are interested in something else, some feature that has been drawn on the map. So in that case, it would be better for you to select a portion of the image. So just to give you a quick demonstration of the point tool. So if we wanted, for example, to say, okay, we're interested in this point, to say that the city of Narni was actually exactly there. So we just put our pointer where we want it to be, and we click, and we get the interface we're now familiar with. We have a field for transcribe, but I mean for point we might not be interested actually in transcribing anything. We tell Recogito that this is a place, and we click on search, so we can actually enter we can actually enter the word that we are looking for, which is Narni in our case, which is, I think, yes, it's that one. It's Narni in Italy, and we say OK. And you see this little blue dot, we have created a point annotation, but we could also say that we're interested in, for example, this, the spelling of, there is actually nothing particularly interesting about it, but let's say that we're interested in the spelling of the city of Sipontum. So we select the portion of the image that has the place name in it, and we drag a little box around it, and then we release. In this case, yes, transcribing is actually useful, and we say that on the map we can read the word Sipontum, and that we think that is a place that Recogito has recognized, so we can confirm that and say, OK. And you see that there is a little shadow box, which is our annotation about Sipontum. We can plot our place annotations on the map in the same way that we have seen before with text, which may seem less useful, and I would agree with that, but there is this amazing feature when you are annotating images that when you plot it on the map and you click on it, actually you see again the snippet of the image that you have annotated, which I think is a particularly useful tool, especially if you are, for example, comparing a bunch of images that that belong maybe to the same document or not, because you can create in Recogito a document that is made of more than one file. In this case, we have a single document that is made of the different folios of this atlas, and it is annotated as a single document in Recogito, which means that we can compare the annotation that have been made. And for example, we could look at we could compare the 4 times that the city of Apollonia has been found on any of the maps in this atlas and see how differently they have been, drawn or spelled and so on. And if you really want to have fun with comparing stuff, you can obviously also do that with text. You could, for example, create put together 2 documents, as I did, combining the account from Livy and Polybius about Hannibal, and you can plot it on the map, and you would see there are not a lot of annotations on this text. I just created them to make an example and to show you that, for example, you have annotation from one author and annotation from the other author about the same place. And it was particularly recognizable because one was in Latin and one was in Greek. So that's why I chose this example. And this was the end of our very crash course on annotating with Recogito. Just a few words about download options, because I think the powerfulness of Recogito is, on the one hand, in how easy it is to create annotation with it, but also the fact that you can download those annotations in a number of digital formats that can be reprocessed, post-processed, and visualized and analyzed. And the fact that you don't need to be an expert in RDF, you don't need to be an expert, you don't need to know anything at all about GeoJSON to produce annotations in Recogito that then can be downloaded as GeoJSON. And just to give you a sense, if you wanted to download a document annotated in Recogito in CSV format, this is what you would see. So these are the fields that are created when you download a CSV in Recogito. And bear in mind that a CSV is one of the most flexible format that you can download data with, and there are a lot of further steps that you can take with a CSV, especially in GIS software or GIS-based visualization. And even if you just wanted to make a simple visualization of your data in Google Maps, you could just use the CSV from Recogito, for example. This is a visualization in Google My Maps created from a Recogito CSV, and we have just, we see all the places that we have annotated, and we have decided to style them with a different color according to the tags. Because as we were saying before, if we create tags and comments, they will be exported and we can use them when we visualize. So for example, we have assigned one color to the certain location and another color to the uncertain locations. Or you can, for example, create a double layer and compare different, two different CSVs that you have created with Recogito. For example, here we are comparing the places in Livy and the places in Polybius when they talk about Hannibal. And just if you are curious to see how Recogito data look when they are downloaded, this is XML RDF in the open annotation format that Paula was describing, so with body and target, and this is GeoJSON. And I mean, you have produced it without knowing that you were doing it. And Recogito allows different users to annotate the same document at the same time. So it is collaborative, and the collaboration can happen simultaneously, but it also has privileges that can be managed so that you can decide who are the people that you want to invite to collaborate with you, and you can give them, either admin or writing or reading only privileges. And when you are really, happy and proud with your annotation, you can make them public if you have the right, copyright status for it, and make them visible and downloadable to everyone, as we have seen with the Atlas annotation that were coming from a British Library experiment some years ago. Now I'll hand it over to Paula again. This was really an essential version of the tutorial. So if you have further questions, I'll be happy to answer to them later.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Great. Let me share my screen again. And okay, so now for the last minutes of this session, I will
go back to camera. Sorry, screen share stopped.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
So what happens now? Hello, hello.
Still seeing you.
Ah, okay. I'm not sharing the right screen. 1 second. Okay. Now?
Yep, great.
Great. Okay, thank you very much, Valeria. So for the last part of this section, I will be looking at other applications of this of geographic annotation in research. And first, I will be looking at my own research, which is the one I know most about, hopefully. And then I will talk about other projects, which are very interesting, but they are not my main field. but we wanted to show you more examples, not just ours. So my research is called Cultural Contact in Early Roman Spain through Linked Open Data. And very briefly, I am looking at cultural contact in early Roman Spain through linked open data resources. So cultural contact refers to the interaction between at least two communities, A and B, sorry, because we are talking about the classical world, we can look at it through textual resources, but also through material culture. This cultural contact can be manifested in cultural change, and this cultural change can be perceived in the influences that one community projects to other community. So what I'm doing is looking at how to obtain linked open data that is already available online from different databases that provides evidence regarding epigraphy, numismatics, sculpture, and other fields. I don't know why it's changing on its own. This will give me the possibility to develop a quantitative analysis of the archaeological evidence regarding cultural contact collected online from different datasets and contextualized and interconnected by means of creation and consumption of linked data resources. This also will later be visualized geographically, so that I can have a deeper reading on the data, and I can develop my own hypothesis regarding the dynamics of the colonial encounter between Romans and Iberian in early Roman Spain. The main databases or projects that I am looking at are all of them work or are are starting to work with linked open data. Nomisma, for example, is a database that, well, is a project that collects information from different data sets regarding coins. Pelagios, that we have already mentioned, Trismegistos, that collects information regarding text, places, people, and many different sources, and Speria, which is a Spanish database that collects information about coins and inscriptions, Iberian and Roman inscriptions, well, mainly Iberian, is a digital edition online, but they would like to start using linked open data so that their records can also be interconnected with other data sets, and again be contextualized and provide metadata and much more information. So the process I'm following is very simple. I start by collecting the places from Pleiades, the GAZETTEER, and then these places that are some of the main settlements, Roman settlements in Baetica. At the moment I am only looking at Baetica because I am developing a small pilot, and then I might expand it to the rest of the peninsula, maybe not. It depends on how much data I get. And this is a screenshot of Peripleo. I ran a query on Peripleo, as you can see here, Baetica, and I selected the time I was looking at, and it shows me the sources where it's getting the information, the type of, if it is a place or an item, and the languages in which the information is collected. So I take the places from Pleiades, the Roman settlements in Spain, and then I also collect all the information Pleiades can give me, so regarding the name of the place, if this name has changed over time, the latitude and longitude, the location, and it also provides me with links with other data sets, it might be the most valuable information, how other data sets can provide information about the place I'm looking at. So, for example, regarding the settlement, as Valeria has mentioned before, this is a screenshot of Pleiades of Colonia Genitiva Julia, which is in Osuna, in Seville, the actual place of Osuna. And as you can see here, as Valeria has explained, we have the location, the latitude and longitude, and we also have the names of the place and how it has changed a long time. This can also provide very interesting information regarding cultural contact, because when Romans come to the peninsula, many of the places change their name, and they also change their status if they become a colonia or a municipium or so on. And this evolution can tell us a lot about the dynamics of cultural contact, and it is collected in this data already. Regarding epigraphy, I'm also looking at ED8, Heidelberg database, which collects epigraphical information from in Latin text from the peninsula. And here I have another screenshot of all the records that this dataset has from Spain, all the red dots that the database from Pleiades can provide me with, and I can collect again in my own data set to put them together with all the other information. Regarding sculpture, there are some data sets such as Arachne, from the IDAI project, but they still don't follow all the standards. I mean, the RDF is not the data is not downloadable yet, but I'm looking at how the possibilities of doing this and some of the features that I could do, that I could look at that could provide some interesting information about the dynamics and about how the contact between the communities happen, or, for example, the style of the sculpture, the number, if some workshops have more material than others, the iconography, the inscription. Some sculptures follow or represent a very local style, while others are more influenced by Roman styles, and they also have bilingual inscriptions, which is one of the most interesting aspects of cultural contact, which I haven't mentioned before. But with epigraphy, I also refer to inscriptions that have bilingual text, either in Iberian or Roman or other types of local languages. And this one of the last sources of evidence I'm looking at is coins, and coins are also very, very interesting and very rich source of information regarding cultural contact, because we can look at the coins as a specimen in themselves, looking at the text they present, if it is if written in Latin or in Iberian or both. Some of them have inscriptions, bilingual inscriptions, which are very interesting. And but also we can look at the mints, which are the place of production of the coins. And this is an example of the visualization of a query that I run in Nomisma. Nomisma is the project that I mentioned that looks at coins, and it works with linked open data. So I queried Nomisma looking for mints that are maximum 500 kilometers far from Madrid. And it provides me, as Valeria has mentioned before, a CSV file of the places, of the mints that Nomisma has registered, 5 kilometers in a radio of 5 kilometers far from Madrid. So I took this CSV, this document, and I put it into Carto, which is another software for visualization, for geographic visualization, and I got this map. So this is a very good example of how through linked open data and geographic information we can obtain, try to solve a research question. If we wanted to know what are the areas where we can find more means, or if they are all together in some specific zone or region, or we could also, if we wanted to, we could add more information like dates. If we wanted to know when these means started to produce coin, when did they stopped their production. Many more questions could be asked too, and these are the kind of questions I aim to be able to answer with my research. And so all this can be made through linked open data, as we have explained. Is my methodology, because it gives me the possibility of linking various pieces of evidence together. This information is open access. For it's normally licensed through Creative Commons licenses, so it's open access. You can use it always if you refer the source. And they are linked together, they are contextualized, and they can offer much more information than if you were doing the research on your own. In some way, you can take advantage of the research made by others. So it is a collaborative effort. And so I look at a settlement, I put all this information in my database that I have collected from other sources, and I try to query, I start to query it, making my own questions regarding some specific places. So for example, if I wanted to know some more information about Colonia Genitiva Julia, because I know that in Osuna, Colonia, in this place that I have mentioned before, I know that they have found an inscription. The Lex Urorenses was found there. It's an important lex with administrative rules and the way of the rules for the community. If I wanted to know a bit more of this place, if I wanted to know if it was a specific area of cultural contact, or if there was more evidence regarding cultural contact in that area, I would query about Osuna in my database, and I will not only get the information about description, which is here, but I will also get information about all the other sources that I have mentioned. So I will be able to see that Colonia Genitiva Julia is a settlement, a Roman Ibero-Roman settlement that has a location, that appears here in the map. And it also is related to epigraphic information, but also coins and means, as it's said here, Ursone. And it also has interesting sculptures that you don't need to know this, but these sculptures have been considered an hybrid production in between Iberian and Roman. So all these could contextualize much more my piece, my inscription, and it could give me a much bigger picture of the idea I was looking at, of the piece of evidence I was looking at. So why is this useful in general terms? Well, first of all, because I can get more data, more information. Second, because I can trace relationships between my data. It's not isolated data, it's data that is interconnected and contextualized. Also, I can get my information from different sources, therefore it's a collaborative effort. I don't need to start the research from the very beginning. I can build on the research that has already been made, and I can use it and I can go further. And all this, therefore, provides richer interpretations. But also, it helps me to go to avoid these silos or these sources in which the information cannot be downloaded or is not connected, but all interrelated and contextualized. So we break this wall and we get into a web of data, the semantic web. And so that was my research project. I hope you enjoyed it. And now I'm going to present two other projects which are very interesting. This one I chose it because also refers to medieval Iberia, to Iberia, and I am kind of a bit more experienced regarding Iberia. And this is a project that was developed by, it kind of was a collaborative project between Spain and South America. And the main idea of the project is to identify toponyms from the Iberian Peninsula in the medieval times. So they registered their records using Recogito. They register the records. They annotate the places that appear in the text. Then they compare them with the Hispanic Seminary of Medieval Studies in order to map and register the geographical references. So they took a text called Documentos Castellanos de Alfonso X, which is mainly focused on Andalucía, Galicia, León, Murcia, Castilla la Nueva, and Castilla la Vieja, and they annotated it in Recogito. And it's very interesting because Pleiades, as you know, it is a gazetteer mainly focused on the classical work. So this work, this project aimed to expand the records of Pleiades and to add many other new places, and also relate them with the places that are already recorded and see how these places evolve a long time. So the outputs of these projects were a digital revised edition of the Documentos Castellanos de Alfonso X, the main source, a specific gazetteers in Pleiades for the medieval Iberia world based on the places of the Documentos Castellanos, a Recogito virtual lab that they carried out in Spain and Argentina. In order to tag the places, they got all together and they started to annotate the places in a collaborative setting, and it was really interesting. And also a tool for the localization and labeling of places in Spanish texts called Megista. Also, specific courses and events were organized in 2016 to promote and disseminate the Pelagios Commons in Spanish and Medieval Iberia project. And in general, it was a very interesting project that, in my opinion, one of the main outputs was to expand the Pleiades records. And then another interesting endeavor was the medieval itineraries. Again, the main aim is the recognition of place reference in the Chronicle of the Pilgrimage by Sir Gilbert Hay, and they used Recogito to annotate the place names that appear in the text. It was a test that had been it wasn't in the best conditions. It was mostly destroyed or eaten by means. So this was a good way to preserve the text and the places recorded in it. They later mapped and visualized the places using Carto. And because it talks about a pilgrimage, is the chronicle or the narrative of a pilgrimage, then they could compare the outputs with other pilgrimage trends and other examples and see the differences between both routes. And they also could search and compare the names they got across a wide range of references. So these are other examples of how geographic annotation can help in resolving some research questions. And with this, I am done. I hope this gives you some inspiration for the project, the essay. And I'm giving you the
Thank you, Paula. You seem to have muted again.
Okay, sorry.
You stopped mid-sentence. You said, I'm giving you, and then you stopped. So weren't sure if you were about to finished. So anyway, thanks very much, Paula and Valeria, for that wonderful summary of both linked open data as a research resource and of geo-annotation and some of the ways that can be used. That's great. Does anyone have any questions or comments they wanted to make at this moment? We have a few minutes left before the end of the session. If you do, you'll need to unmute yourselves. If nobody has any immediate questions, maybe I could ask you to say a few words about the exercise that you suggested on the session page for this session that students might have a go at over the weekend.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so what we are asking the students to do is a little bit of what we have showed already during the class. So we are suggesting to annotate one document that they're interested in. It could be either a text or a map if they prefer. I would say that the exercise is taught more for a text, but if they prefer to work on an image, that's entirely up to them. And to just perform a number of annotations and a significant number of annotations. Let's say we suggest at least 100. And this exercise can be made, either singularly or as a group exercise. If it is performed as a group exercise, I recommend the people that are going to work together to start discussing what are the tags that they're going to use, what are the research questions that they want to address, what are the aspects of the text that they are more interested in annotating. So just that this ensure more consistency in the annotation. And then what we are asking is to look at your annotation, basically, especially after you plot them on the map, and to see if this new insight that the geographic visualization, this very straightforward geographic visualization that Recogito offers, starts telling something about the text that wasn't immediately perceivable before just reading the text. So as this this process of annotating a text and visualizing on the map what are the places mentioned and what is the weight of each place in the narrative of the text. As this operation already brought some new insights to the text that were not there before, and to discuss what adding a spatial perspective as brought to the understanding of the text. And if people feel very, very keen and they start, enjoying the annotation process and they want to take it a step further, we suggest a few, let's say, optional extra activities that involve Google My Maps, as we have very quickly showed during the tutorial. So if the students or the other participants want to download their data, including the tags that they might have created, and use the CSVs to create different visualizations in Google My Maps, and again, think and discuss what this new visualization of the information, what this new arrangement of the information can bring to the text, how the text become richer after it is analyzed or compared to other texts through this process.
Thank you. That I think will be great. I think the students will get a lot out of that. Did anyone else have any final comments or suggestions they wanted to add? to the end of our allotted time, so we can thank both Valeria and Paula again for this session, and we'll see you all next week for the next in our geographic themed sessions, which will be on GIS and on generating geographic data in a slightly more traditional and advanced technical way. Cool. So thank you very much. See you all soon.
Thank you, Gabby.
Bye.